So we found it.
Welcome to a very special Knights of Glen, celebrating the 80th anniversary, the 80th birthday of Marvel Comics. And you're probably wondering why I'm starting off this special in the middle of nowhere. And the reason for that is about to become clear. So I'm here at the University of East Anglia Sainsbury Centre, where I spent a lot of my youth because my mum works here and my dad was studying here. And this is of course the Avengers Headquarters, so there was no better place to start off this special. This is of course where they filmed the end of Age of Ultron and the Avengers Headquarters. All the cast were here. I didn't get to meet them because I had school and my mum wouldn't let me scout off to meet them, but my godfather was lucky enough to meet Robert Downey Jr. So this place from my childhood being featured in my all-time favourite movie franchise was life-changing back in 2014 when they filmed it, and in 2015 seeing it on screen. And being able to just watch that scene in the cinema knowing it was so close was amazing. I like to visit here obviously because it's Avengers Headquarters, and it is not a ditch. Disappointed to find out they did not actually blow it up for Endgame. This section is really a personal one for me, because this is going to be me tracing back through my love of Marvel over the last 15 to 20 years really, and what got me into it, what got me to really being in it, comic book wise, movie wise, stuff like that, really going deep into it. So this is the very special part of this special that I'm doing. So to start off with, of course, it would be Spider-Man. From 3 years old, if not earlier, I knew who Spider-Man was because of these Wellington boots. These are the first Marvel items I ever owned. Believe it or not. And that is what I would say started it all off. I mentioned in an Instagram video the figures I'm going to show, but the first of which was this from Spider-Man 2, which I didn't see until I was about 3 or 4. But I got this from a Burger King way before, and going with that I got this Burger King Iron Man toy. So this was my introduction to Iron Man, was through this toy right here. Also from Burger King. So my introduction to a few Marvel characters that are mainstays in the MCU. Oh, mainstays is probably not the word to use, Spider-Man, but like in the public conscious is Iron Man and Spider-Man, which stems from these toys. And then next, I can't remember if I got this before or after the Iron Man toy. My first comic, yes, I've lost the cover. Yes, I am personally ashamed because of the great care I take my comics through these days. But even in that terrible condition, this comic's so special to me because it's really what opened me up to characters other than Spider-Man, because before then I was like, oh, it's a Spider-Man, just as a kid would. But then, this, which Moon Knight, Night Thrasher, and Nova, who will come into play later on, character Nova. So this comic, and I can't remember if I said the Punisher, but the Punisher, who you know I love. So this is an incredibly important stepping stone to me. And then after that, we go into another figure I've talked about before, which is this Mr. Fantastic, and this thing, which is my brother's, which we got before even watching the Fantastic Four film. which introduced me to those characters, I became obsessed with Mr. Fantastic. Used to always want to be Mr. Fantastic. Same birthday, I also got my first Spider-Man figure. Love that figure. Also, my mind just skipped, is what I spoke about almost 2 years ago in a X-Men video, which I'll link down below for going more into detail, which is, of course, my love of X-Men in every version, even the film, which it was what introduced me. Yes, they're poor adaptations, but I wouldn't be anywhere near as into Marvel, I don't think, if it wasn't for the character of Wolverine and the connection I've had with that character due to playing games as that character with my brother and my friends. We would play X-Men, so there's a very intimate connection with that. Also, really obscure characters, like quite obscure characters, non-comic readers, like Silver Surfer, I remember knowing about when I moved into my second house as a child, so I would have been 3 or 4. I can remember going, there was a board in this back garden, I remember going, oh, I'm the Silver Surfer. I just have that memory. And then I remember my dad telling me about the Silver Surfer. So I've always known, as far as I'm aware, about the Silver Surfer, and I don't know where I was exposed to him from, but I've always known of the character. So my favourite comic book movie for years was Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, because of my aforementioned love of Fantastic Four through those toys and the introduction, animated shows and such, but also just me randomly knowing from before I would have seen the films or TV shows the Silver Surfer, so I've just had a random connection with that character that is unexplained. So that's another random one. And then we're going to jump 6 or 7 years to sticking to toys before we go back to comics with this action figure. I remember getting this, I can't remember when this came out, but it was definitely before the movie. But this is the movie Captain America. I remember having this and cherishing it, which I'm gonna now segue into talking about these, which I've also mentioned before, which are these magazines, which I'll just take one as an example. They used to have like puzzles in and Spider-Man comics and facts about loads of different characters. And this is my introduction to Captain America through this comic and information stuff. And I got obsessed with the characters of Captain America, Captain Britain, Daredevil from those magazines. So it shows that it's not just the traditional comics, but those magazines that are also really good at introducing young audiences. And I wish Marvel had more of a push through affordable comics through that format. Like, as I've said before, for £3.50 when I was getting into comics, there would be these collections that had 4 to 5 stories of Captain America, Iron Man, the Avengers 4, all those into one thing. If they released those now, they would be huge. I mean, more widely now, because you can only get them in shops called WH Smith's in the UK. If you lowered the price and had them in Tesco's, Asda's, Sainsbury's, like the Walmart initiative for DC Comics, I feel they would be big. So that's just something I wouldn't say passionate about, but it's something I'd like to get younger people into actually reading the comics, as it's had such an impact outside of the movies for me. So I'd love kids to see the movies and go, oh, I can get this for the price of a standard comic, but read so many 4 or 5 different characters and a team as well. That's important. And then going from that, like my introduction to my all-time favourite comic book team in comics, not in movies, is the Guardians of the Galaxy. After reading those, I went to my library, which is just over there from where I'm filming this, and I read this in the library when I was, so I would have been about 8 or 9 when I read this, and this introduced me to Nova, as I mentioned, so I've loved Nova for quite a while. Adam Warlock, who's one of my favourite characters, Star-Lord, who's in my top 10 favourite comic book characters, and I'm not sure he's in this volume, but most importantly, it introduced me to my main man, Thanos, who, as you know, is my all-time favourite comic book villain, and I absolutely love him. So libraries are also a brilliant way to get into comics with. I just saw some Marvel, it looked really cool, and it was space, and I love space. So I read that, and then 6 years after that, Guardians of the Galaxy came out. And then I read the Brian Michael Bendis run before that, which my brother's godfather gave me. So those sort of things, getting into characters. Randomly, you are almost a decade ahead of people. So I always thought they were a really prominent team, but evidently they are not. And now we're going to go talk about teams. My third favourite comic book team of all time, the Avengers. This was, I think, the first Avengers comic I ever got, with one of my favourite Captain America suits. And this introduced me to the characters of Quake, Agent Carter, Sharon Carter, Maria Hill, who I'd only really seen in animation, coming from that. And now that goes on to the next thing I'm going to talk about. I've spoken about how the X-Men animated show is such a big introduction into my love of Marvel and comics, through introducing me to X-Men outside of the movie ones. Not just X-Men the animated series, but Wolverine and the X-Men, which introduced me to Kitty Pryde, who's in my top 5 favourite comic book characters. So it's things like that that you wouldn't think would resonate with me just that long, but it has. And I still love the character, I still love the team, obviously. But also the Avengers animated shows, not just Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which is my second favourite animated show of all time, but also Avengers United, which gets a lot of hate, but it was my introduction to the Avengers, and Hank Pym, Tigra, Wonder Man, who I love, Scarlet Witch, who I love, Falcon, who I love, Hawkeye, who I love. It was the introduction of many of those characters which got me hyped for the MCU. Through those films, animated shows. And then there's the Fantastic Four animated show, which I got, Captain America, the 1960s show I got on DVD, Thor show I got on DVD, and it was all those things that helped build up before I started getting properly into comics when I was 11 or 12. It was animation and stuff like that. That really ignited that passion for not just superheroes, not just comic book characters, but especially Marvel, which is why I have such strong connections to the Marvel universes. Also, something I was going to talk about is my love of Agent Coulson, probably Marvel's most influential comic character to me personally. And he wasn't introduced in the comics, but I do have the first ever appearance of Phil Coulson, the first appearance in main continuity and in the Ultimates continuity. And I would not be doing my university subject, which is international relations, if it was not for Phil Coulson and S.H.I.E.L.D. So that aspect of Marvel Universe inspiring me to be better and do better is a massive, massive part of my life. And Phil Coulson is just one of, to me, the greatest characters ever created on screen or in comics, and has been incredibly important to me. And another character that people who've watched my channel will know, who's really important to me, is Captain Marvel, who, going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, I wouldn't have got into if it wasn't for Guardians of the Galaxy comics and the Avengers comics. And like I said, those digestible ones, which is what introduced me to Warbird, and I loved the character of Warbird, but she was never my favourite character. But then when she became Captain Marvel from Warbird, that is when she became my favourite comic book character. And it's just, like we're saying, connections like that. Now on to another aspect that is incredibly important to me if you haven't watched the channel before, which is of course the MCU. When I found out about the films, was like so excited. For the Iron Man movie, my dad got on DVD because he's a massive Robert Downey Jr. fan as well as a comic book fan. But like I said, all my previous knowledge of the character was either from those magazines or this action figure. So I remember sitting there with this action figure, watching Iron Man on my TV. And that was my introduction. And then I saw the Incredible Hulk movie. I didn't realise they were connected, but of course, Robert Downey Jr. I was like, what? And stuff like that. I always wanted the characters to cross over. I was always like, what if the Incredible Hulk crosses over the Fantastic Four? What if the X-Men cross over Fantastic Four? What if the X-Men cross over with Spider-Man? That's what really got me in comics, was like knowing that these characters can cross over, interact, team up, fight threats and they couldn't on their own, which is as I've said before, it's my favourite aspect of the Avengers, is that they can't individually fight them alone, but together they can take on someone as big as Thanos. And that's what Marvel, I know people have the connection to DC, but my passion is, I love DC characters, don't get me wrong, but my passion is really for Marvel characters. And especially I feel with these teams is that they have that idea that you're too weak to do it on your own, and you need to work together, you need to interact for it to work. And that's what I really take from comics, with organisations such as S.H.I.E.L.D. Driving me to do, as I said, what I'm studying. It's that what really fires my passion, I think, for Marvel. And going into that interconnected universe, like, I remember being like, I was never hyped for a comic book movie as much as I was for Captain America. I just remember being blown away watching the trailer, like seeing a little skinny guy, like, obviously, because I read Captain America obviously post Serum, so like seeing the trailer and him being a little weak guy like me, and then becoming Captain America, like, I was so hyped for that movie, but sadly I didn't get to see that cinema. But like I said, I had my action figures, so I played with that all the time. Also, Thor was the first MCU movie I ever geeked out in. When Hawkeye turns up, I was like, what the frack? Hawkeye's in it. I remember just being so excited for that. And when Nick Fury turns up, and of course Coulson, and then that was how I really got into the MCU. And I remember the first MCU movie I saw in the cinema was kind of after the Incredible Hulk, kind of fittingly, was the Avengers, and that's one of my fondest movie experiences. And that was 7 years ago, and it just, that stuck with me. All the Avengers screenings I've been to, midnight screening for Infinity War, Endgame, just all those experiences I can just bring back vividly in my mind. Just, that's how important this is to me, that all these comic books, like, nothing can give me so much passion, so much happiness, so much sadness as comics, and then their movies. And they just mean absolutely so much to me, and these characters mean so much to me. Like Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, Captain America, because they mean so much to me in the comics. Seeing them on the screen is just, and seeing Captain America's arc from the MCU has just made him my favourite movie character. He was in my top 5, but that Endgame just cemented that. And then going back to my action figure, I've been called sad for this, but I don't really give a fuck, to be honest. I don't care what other people think. This action figure has been to every single Avengers movie I've seen. I took it to see the first Avengers movie. I took it to see Age of Ultron. I took it to see Civil War. I took it to see Infinity War. I took it to see Endgame. And just knowing that I won't be taking it to the next Avengers film because Cap won't be in it is kind of weird. But it just shows that with comic books, people really care what other people think, it seems. I don't. I'm so open about how much I love comic books. And, like, I honestly do not care if people think I'm weird, think I'm too old to take this to see a film. I really could not care. This figure just means so much to me. The films mean so much to me. The stories, the comics, everything just means so much to me. I don't care what they think. And that just sums up the intentions of Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and especially Jack Kirby, as well as Joe Simon, creating Captain America and all these characters. is they're all freaks, they're all weird, they're all outcasts, but like I said, they come together and then they save the world, the galaxy, the universe. They're all different, they're all special, all different races, genders, sexualities, but that does not matter. What matters is that they are trying to help people. They're trying to be better. They're trying to be heroes. And then when they, in Agents of Shield, Nick Fury said,
a part of something bigger.
Is that how it went? Not a great listener.
If you tell me this whole hydropath thing you took is because you misheard my damn one-man speech.
and that just really sums it up. So I think that's where I'm going to end this. I was going to do more of a breakdown of my love of the Captain America character movie, but I think that's just going to end it there. That feels like a good ending point. So thanks for watching, and most importantly, happy 80th birthday to Marvel, and thank you so much.
I love you 3,000.